So as you continue to grow the team, what did anything surprise you just in terms of? I mean, I know it sounds like you had some turnover of probably the first several months, getting new team members, probably a lot of energy building. As you really started to say, like, okay, I had a vision. We might, everything's not necessarily figured out, but we feel like we're heading in the right, like confirmation, heading in the right direction. Confidence is building. Is there anything in that journey that surprised you for the better, just as you continue to evolve things?
I think the biggest thing that probably surprised me, the extreme possibilities that existed within my millennials was a little bit of a shock because I had just heard all the bad things
Okay.
about millennials
Yeah, there's plenty of that.
and I hadn't really experienced a whole lot. But as I started hiring millennials and cultivating millennials and really getting to know that generation, like just on an intimate level, like how they think and how they uh why they process things a certain way, like I really became a student because I was just mesmerized at what they could do when you unlocked that potential, man.
Hmm.
By come the time that I left that dealership 8 years later, all but three of my managers were all millennials, man. Every
Yeah.
single one of them, and my top salespeople were millennials. And these were young people that were showing up half an hour early, staying 2 hours late, pouring into their teammates, performing at a super high level, taking care of things at home, concerned about their babies and their girlfriends or wives, and just making really, really, really good decisions. It was like, wow, man, these kids got it going on. Like their careers are going to be incredible because they just were so adaptive to what we were trying to do and so willing to throw out something that's not working, right? That's what I think
Hmm.
millennials are really great at. And so a lot of people say, well, they job jump or they have no loyalty, they can't hold down, they can't stay focused. It's not that, dude. They
Hmm.
see that something's not working,
Hmm.
and if you don't change it, yeah, they'll jump ship, bro, because they're like, this doesn't work. Whereas some of us older folks, we'll just keep beating our head against the wall until we're 65, and we spend the rest of our lives making $1,200 a month on Social Security, looking back, going, dang. I guess that really wasn't working for me. I probably should have tried something different, right? And so that was probably the biggest thing for me. That was just a shockers, man. Millennials are really incredible. It's really an incredible generation.
Yeah. No, that's cool. And I imagine that kind of maybe catch it up a little bit to more present day as you go back into these dealerships and as you hold. I've got your website pulled up. The conference name, Hustle and Grind Con. Is that
It-
specific to the automotive, or is
It's
that?
not. So Hustle and Grind Con's kind of a blend of
Okay.
motivation, education, and inspiration. We do have leaders from the auto industry that speak at those
Okay.
particular events, but we also have people outside the industry.
Okay. So aside from that, I guess where I was going with that was as you go back into these dealerships and you're doing consulting, training, things that go along with helping them develop their teams. I would imagine that you're seeing, a lot of teams these days probably are still millennial heavy, and that probably is continuing to pay dividends in terms of, hey, I helped that team firsthand, and now here were my lessons learned, and let's kind of talk through that.
Yeah,
Is
no
that
doubt.
fair? Yeah.
It's interesting though. Most dealerships do not have a millennial workforce.
Okay.
Most dealerships have Tom, Bob, John, and and Bill, and they've been there for 25 years.
Okay.
And they're 60 years old or 65, and they don't really have anywhere to go because they got divorced 3 times and they have no relationship with their kids because they've
Yeah.
been hanging out in this dealership for 45 years. Um,
Mm.
and that's what we see because the industry is so slow to change, and
Okay.
people are more worried about being like people's feelings,
Hmm.
and so they just haven't had to adapt. Like the industry's always been very profitable. You don't have to perform at a high level to make money selling cars. Like
Hmm.
as a dealership, there's ways with your service department and your parts department and floor plan credits and franchise things. Like you really don't have to be good to run a dealership. You don't.
Mm.
And so most dealerships are not very good, and they're stacked with a bunch of, and I'm not, I hate to refer to like the age. I'm just saying this is what we see.
Hmm.
I know
Understand.
plenty of older people that do adapt and do roll and do perform, and most of them are doing really well in this industry because they stand out. Um, but bringing in millennials is has been difficult for a lot of leaders in our industry because they don't take the time to get to know them relationally, and they just want them to come in and do the same thing that they did for 40 years. But the millennials looking at Bill and Bob and Tom and John and going, dude, I don't want that. That
Yeah.
is not attractive to me at all. I don't, there's nothing about that motivates me or inspires me. And so they go somewhere else. And
Yeah.
so I'm working with leaders to help them better understand how important that generation can be to their future. And that if you're not growing, especially today's day and age when dealerships around the country are in so much danger, because we have some big boy players now with lots of money that are coming into the market, and they're forward thinking, they're progressive, they're technologically advanced. They've listened to the consumer and what the consumer hates, and they're creating a better process. They've listened to the employees, they know what the employees hate, and they're creating a better process. And so
Hmm.
these small kind of mom and pop dealerships that have been around forever, which is the majority of them, they're in danger, bro, like literal
Wow.
danger. So I go in and I smack them around a little bit, and I'm like, look, bro, you're dying on the vine and you don't even know
Down
it.
on the vine. Yeah.
You've got maybe 5 years left and you're about to lose your family legacy. We have got to get some fresh ideas in here. We need to spur some growth. And if your people won't get on board, they are going to have to go work somewhere else. The kindest thing that you can do is let them go somewhere else so that they can perform at a super high level if they're not going to do it here. And so that's a conversation I have to have with a lot of dealers across the US.
Yeah. And so I know 800% Club is part of, your mission here. And I think you said it took about 5 or 6 years really for that story to play out for you. Is that fair? But I'm assuming when
Correct.
you go in and you say, "Hey, come be part of the 800% Club," I've got this refined down to where it took me 5 or 6 years, but it's going to take you, X. Is that kind
Sure.
of how? Is that a fair
Yeah, yeah, yes,
representation of
yes, and
that?
no. We can
Okay.
definitely do it faster and avoid some of the pitfalls.
Yeah.
There's multiple components, though. I can give people every strategy in the world. If they don't execute on it, they're not moving
That's fair.
anywhere, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Execution is everything. So systems work if you work the system. They
Yeah.
don't work if you don't work the system. So on that side, yes, we can move faster and avoid the pitfalls and the traps if you put in the work. However, just like Warren Buffett said, you can't make a baby in a month by getting 9 women pregnant. Like some things still take time. So as we grow and develop, we create new problems. You grow, as we grew as a dealership over that period of time, once we started increasing volume, then of course we had to source more talented individuals. And then when we source more talented individuals, we had to go buy more land. We had to stock more inventory. We had to upgrade our floor plan credits and our lines of credit with the manufacturers. Like
Hmm.
there's things that take time. You can't just, you can't just grow. So each level creates its own new problems, and I
Hmm.
just help the dealers navigate those problems faster and avoid the pitfalls so that they can ultimately get that growth. Yeah.
Yeah. That's awesome. So I do want to kind of get into the rise and grind. I'm really fascinated with. I personally like cars a lot. I was in a company that was basically, somewhat of like a tier three in the automotive.
Mhm.
Have not spent any time working for like a dealership, but as a consumer of cars, it just interests me to hear somebody with your story. So I hope I'm not like trying to take this too far for too long,
No, you're great, man. We talk. Yeah, that's what we're here, man. We'll talk about whatever you need.
I guess a lot of my passion and focus is around leadership as kind of a broad topic. Is and that's, I think, a lot of what you're unpacking here in terms of uh, your experience and the value you're bringing to the dealership. But does it go deeper than your focus, your influence on them, your consulting to them? Is it truly across the board? No department is untouched, or is it one or two is kind of the focus, and then hey, if there's others you want to ask me about or have my involvement in, I'll be there. What's kind of your format with that?
Yeah, so the key areas that we focus on are volume. We've got to scale our volume. We focus on profitability. We can't scale our volume unless we stay profitable. All good businesses have to make money. It's not a dirty word. So we focus on volume, profitability, employee retention, which is really our culture piece, and then we also focus on I'm sorry, volume, profitability, employee retention, and overall dealership culture. Those are the
Culture.
four main areas. And obviously, as we develop the overall culture, that helps us with our employee retention, which helps us with our volume, which helps us up with our profits, right? And so yeah, I just work with them in those four areas and really try to expand their minds and break them out. Hunter, people, human beings, they're 95% reactive, right? 95% of the thoughts that you have today, the decisions that you made today, the behaviors that you um, experience today, 95% of that is generated based on predisposed uh, experiences that you've had in the past, ideas,
Mm-hmm.
belief systems, how you grew up, where you grew up, who you grew up around, all of those things. So only 5% of your thoughts on any given day are actually original thoughts. And so I'm able to go in and help plant some new original thoughts into the minds of these leaders,
Mm-hmm.
teach them a different way to lead, a different way to really develop their people, a different way to train and to scale and to uh, create a high level experience for their customers, right? I come in with that 5% that you don't know what you don't know, right? So they
Mm-hmm.
just they
Mm-hmm.
just don't know. But those are kind of the four areas. So when it gets into parts and service and things like that, I'm deadly in those areas, but I'm not an expert at all. So I don't claim to be.
Mm-hmm.
And really, we just focus on their people that do work in those departments. We can help with that. But as far as systems and processes, I don't mess with that side. We stay on the sales side.
Yeah, nice, nice. Okay, so just kind of catch up to where you are today. You decided that you love the GM role. You have a great story getting up to that point, and then you left to do this full time. What kind of a decision was that? Was that something that, was there some overlap in there, or was it, hey, I need to end this tomorrow, and then the next day is diving in, and from ground zero? What is that? What did that part of the story look like?
Yeah, it was crazy, man. I started this show in January of 2018, show called Rise and Grind, where I just wanted to inject motivation and education and inspiration into the world. And through that show, that led to, kind of creating a following and people that were like me, they were attracted to me. And so through that, we ended up creating a group, which created a clothing line. Then we started having events. And fast forward 10 months, we had this event called Hustle and Grind Con. And for the first time in 8 years, I took 10 days off straight of work, which was very unlike me. But I took 10 days off and I loved my job. I loved my position. We were winning at a massive level, making great money. My wife was 9 months pregnant. um, had the house, the white picket fence, you name it, bro. I
Yeah.
was making cheddar, like top 0.5% of Americans' money, like making really good money. Everything was great, and I loved my job very, very much. And I took 10 days off because I had Hustle and Grind Con on one end, and then the next weekend was a men's Christian leadership conference at my church. And I never got to go to those conferences because I always work weekends being in the car business. And
Hmm.
so I was like, you know what? I'm going to bookend both of them. I'll spend 3 days in between with my family, and I'm just going to do that. And so I did. And I went and spoke. I was a speaker at Hustle and Grind Con. I got to meet Eric Thomas, the number one motivational speaker in the world. Him and I shared a stage and really hit it off, which was cool. A mentor of mine was there. She whispered some incredible words of wisdom into my ears that had sparked a real fire in my belly. And so it was just a great, great, great conference. And then I came home from the conference feeling like a bazillion bucks.
Hmm.
Came home, and my wife and my kids, and I played with them and hung out with them for 3 days. I ate breakfast with them. I ate dinner with them, which is in the car business you just don't do. You just don't do. So for 8 years, the only time I'd eaten breakfast and dinner with my kids was on Sundays. And luckily, because the dealership I was at was closed on Sundays, a lot of people don't get that luxury of having dinner or breakfast with their family one day a week, right?
Hmm.
And so I spent 3 days with him. It was awesome.
Yeah.
And then I went to this men's Christian leadership conference, and this guy named Scott Nichols up on the stage. And Scott says, most of you think Jesus looks like this sheep carrying flannel graph, weak sauce dude, but let me teach you something. And then we spend the next 2 days diving into like Jesus the warrior,
Yeah.
and the way that he would flip tables and go into danger zones and risk life and limb to spread this message of hope and encouragement, and just get in the trenches and get his hands dirty, and just what a gritty dude he was, man. And so I like come out of that like fired up, man. I'm like,
Yeah.
yeah, that's what I'm talking about. I'm a warrior. I'm a man. I got a family. I'm speaking on stages. Like, this is awesome. And so I go back to work that Monday morning, and I go in, I lead the sales meeting. I'm back to work. I'm jacked up. I'm ready to go. And one of the owners, so there's two owners at the dealership, one that him and I thought the same, walked the same, talked the same. And then the other one who I love dearly because God calls us to love all people, but not for really any other reason. And
Yeah.
so that one called me into his office. The one I had a lot of synergies with wasn't there that morning. And we had a conversation. And in the middle of that conversation, it did not feel like I felt before I walked into that room, when I was like on just cloud nine. Everything was
Yeah.
amazing. And all of that just shifted. And in the middle of that conversation, my thought process, and it was just a conversation, it wasn't anything bad. But in the middle of that conversation, my thought process was, this is your opportunity to step out of the boat onto the water and see where I can take you. Or you can stay right where you're at, and this is what you're going to experience for the next 10 years. Like,
Yeah.
that thought popped into my head, and I was like, okay, well, what I'm experiencing right now is not that bad, right? I'm making great money, and
Semi
you know,
comfortable.
I'm good. Yeah, I'm really comfortable kind of where I'm at. Yeah, I don't like dealing with this, every day, but and then it just was clear, like a peace just watched over me. And so I said to him, I said, I said, buddy, this has been the greatest 8 years of my life, but I believe this season is over. I think I've done everything that I can do, with where I'm at with you, and it's been a
Yeah.
heck of a ride. But I
Wow.
quit. And he, like, his eyes popped out of his head, his jaw hit the floor. I was the face of that dealership.
Mm.
And so he argued and got animated, and I was just at peace. I was just like, bro, I'm not mad. Like, I'm
Hmm.
so thankful for the last 8 years. It's been absolutely incredible. there's just more for me. I know that there's more. I can make a bigger impact. I can help more people. I can reach more leaders, but I gotta like get rid of this safety net. This, I got to get out of this comfort zone. I'm too comfortable. You're most comfortable in life right before death is what I've learned in my experiences. And so it's
Mhm.
like I gotta get uncomfortable.